Hello, I'm Harper Davis, and I'm 23 years old. Before we dive into my story, if you're enjoying this tale, please consider subscribing and giving us a like. It really helps us bring you more compelling stories like this one. You might think you understand what happened when I stood on that television stage and rejected $20 billion from an oil tycoon family. But what you witnessed was only the surface of something much darker than anyone could have imagined. In the 18th year after I went missing, my oil tycoon parents appeared on a national family reunion show. At that moment, I was disheveled and unwashed, having not bathed in 10 days, when they saw me and immediately broke down in tears. "Our daughter, we are so sorry we failed you." I lowered my head and caught the scent of my mother's Chanel No. 5 perfume, noticed my father's Patek Philippe watch. When I looked up again, my accomplished pianist sister Penelope and my NASA astronaut brother Sebastian were also sobbing uncontrollably. Every person in the audience was deeply moved by this scene. However, I simply and calmly took the paternity test results from my parents' hands. With a sharp, tearing sound, I said expressionlessly, "You have mistaken me for someone else." My parents stood frozen in shock. "What did you just say?" they asked in disbelief. I took a step backward and spoke in a cold voice, "I am not your daughter." Upon hearing this, they frantically bent down to pick up the pieces of the paternity test I had torn and scattered on the ground. 99.999%. The test result shows 99.999% accuracy. "How could you possibly not be our daughter?" My mother, Vivian Davis, stared at me with wide, red-rimmed eyes, while her limited edition crocodile leather Hermes handbag lay abandoned on the floor beside her. I shrugged my shoulders and said casually, "The sample that was sent for paternity testing was nothing more than hair I picked up from a garbage bin. Besides, if you had not offered $1,000 just for providing a strand of hair, I never would have come here in the first place." My mother's tears seemed to freeze on her face, but then a trembling voice spoke from beside her. "Hazel, are you holding a grudge against your parents? Are you angry that we lost you, so you refuse to acknowledge us? Is that it?" My father, Jonathan Davis, spoke with a hoarse voice, his eyes completely bloodshot. I frowned with impatience. "I already told you, you have the wrong person. I am absolutely not—" "No, you are definitely our daughter." My father suddenly became agitated as he stared intently at me. You look exactly like your mother, as if you were carved from the same mold." At that moment, all the cameras turned toward me, focusing on my face. This was CBS's Finding Home program, watched by tens of millions of viewers across America. I instinctively raised my hand to cover my face, but my mother grabbed my hand instead. She brushed aside my unwashed bangs that had gone 10 days without cleaning and pulled out her Hermes silk scarf from her pocket, gently wiping away the grime that covered my entire face. By the time I realized what was happening, my face was fully visible to the American viewing audience. Everyone in the studio gasped audibly, and even the host, Dr. Patricia Wells, could not help but exclaim in amazement. The daughter and mother truly look absolutely identical. My mother's hands began shaking more violently, and her crying grew louder. "Hazel, you are my Hazel!" As she moved to embrace me in her excitement, I stepped back once again and said with absolute determination, "I told you, I am not your daughter, and I am certainly not anyone named Hazel. Since I have received my $1,000, I should be leaving now." After my third denial, the entire studio erupted in an uproar. "My goodness, what is wrong with this girl? The paternity test results are right there, and the mother and daughter look absolutely identical. How can she still be so stubborn?" I cannot believe this. Her biological parents are the wealthiest people on the Forbes list, something I could never dream of happening to me, and she actually refuses to acknowledge them. Meanwhile, on stage, these two people worth hundreds of billions of dollars were quietly shedding tears. Hazel, we are so sorry. It is all my fault, your mother's fault. I was the one who lost you and caused you to suffer for all these years. I rolled my eyes and smirked with contempt. Two complete lunatics. Just as I was about to turn and leave, I glanced down and noticed that my worn sneakers had a hole in them, with my dirty big toe sticking out, and there were skin flakes scattered all around me on the stage. My mother followed my gaze and nearly fainted at what she saw. My father's eyes welled up with tears again as he turned his face away. Hazel, please give us a chance to make things right, will you? My mother sobbed as she pulled out a black American Express Centurion card from her purse. If you will just call us Mom and Dad once, these $20 billion on this card are yours to spend however you wish. Whether you want a luxury apartment in Manhattan or a mansion in Beverly Hills or even a seaside estate in the Hamptons, you can live wherever your heart desires. Please, will you consider it? Holy cow, this is absolutely insane wealth. Damn those human traffickers. These should be my real parents. Please change the channel for me. As soon as they finished speaking, not only did the studio audience erupt in excitement, but the CBS Live comments exploded with more than 999 responses. Twitter immediately went wild with reactions. Oh my goodness, homeless girl just became a real princess. Harper opened what she thought was a rags to riches story and discovered it was actually a tale of suffering. Wait, why is she not moving at all? This crazy girl has not gone mad with joy, has she? Why does she not just acknowledge them already? This is making me so anxious. Man, if I were in her position, I would not even know how crazy with happiness I would be, especially since these are oil tycoons, #1 on the Forbes list. I slowly looked around the entire stage, where more than 100 cameras were pointed at me, and the live audience held their breath in anticipation. I met my parents' expectant gazes and gently pushed away the black card they were offering me. I will say this one final time. I am not your daughter. After I spoke these words with absolute finality, I immediately turned around. The $20 billion black card clattered to the floor. My parents stood stunned while the audience immediately erupted in angry shouting. What the hell? Her brain must have been damaged. Does she even understand what she just did? Am I the crazy one or is she the crazy one? $20 billion. My ancestors going back 18 generations combined never had that much money. I no longer hesitated and lifted my foot to leave. $50 billion. $50 billion. My mother's urgent and choked voice called out behind me. Hazel, please let your mother use $50 billion to buy just one chance to make amends to you. I am begging you. I paused in my steps. $50 billion? When my mother saw me stop walking, her eyes immediately lit up with hope. Yes, yes, yes. As long as you are willing to call me Mom just once. No, as long as you are willing to talk with me, I will have the money transferred immediately. Upon hearing this, I grinned widely. All right then. Give me $100 million right now, or I am leaving immediately. My mother looked startled, and I sneered back at her. What? Having second thoughts already? After she recovered from her shock, she quickly shook her head, and, as if afraid I might change my mind, stumbled as she rushed out to call her private banker. At that moment, the entire audience buzzed with conversation. Well, I thought this girl was truly foolish, but it turns out she is actually quite clever. She is even calculating against her own biological parents. You can tell from her face that she is not a good person. Exactly. She is really pushing her luck. Why should she so easily obtain wealth that others could never earn in multiple lifetimes? As the audience's complaints grew louder, the host, Dr. Wells, spoke calmly. Please remain calm, everyone. At the same time, the large screen on the stage slowly lit up. After everyone watches this video, perhaps you will be able to understand Miss Davis's actions a bit better. I remained silent and looked up. The camera crew in the video appeared to be filming the entrance to an abandoned storm drain, and outside the opening were mountains of discarded items and garbage. Wait a minute, this is exactly... What is this thing, a landfill? No, that is not right. Landfills are not this dirty and chaotic. This looks more like a homeless camp. Oh my, someone is coming out, so people can actually live in there. My goodness, that person is Harper. The screen image shifted, and all the audience members turned to look at me in unison. In the video, I was standing on my tiptoes, searching through the garbage bin behind a McDonald's restaurant. I lost my balance, and the garbage bin crashed down heavily, scattering leftover food mixed with all kinds of rotting scraps across the ground. I crouched on the hot Dallas pavement and used my hands to pick up the food and eat it directly. Everyone immediately gasped and frowned in disgust. At that moment, my mother returned from contacting the bank, running breathlessly, and happened to see this scene. Ah! She covered her mouth but could not control her outcry. The host sighed deeply, with her eyes slightly moist. This footage was obtained by our production team through the Dallas County Department of Social Services. Miss Davis has not had an easy life. But fortunately, the family has been reunited. The audience members also sighed collectively, and their previous anger transformed into silence. The studio was filled only with my mother's uncontrollable crying and my father's suppressed sobbing. Hazel, your mother was so wrong. She completely lost any semblance of being an oil baroness wife, showing only a mother's painful remorse. I did not even know that my own biological daughter was living in a garbage dump. I truly deserved to die. Even my brother Sebastian, who had remained silent throughout, could not help but speak. Hazel, you have no idea. After you went missing, Mom nearly cried herself blind. Dad drowned himself in alcohol every day and almost died from alcohol poisoning. For 18 years, 18 long years, our family has never had a single happy day. My sister Penelope also cried out, "That is right. At home, we never dared to celebrate even one birthday. Every holiday, our house was the most desolate place imaginable. Dad and Mom spent most of their life's energy searching for you. You should not have acted that way." Before she could finish her sentence, my father sternly rebuked her. "Be quiet." His eyes were bloodshot. We are the ones who failed Hazel. We are so sorry." With a heavy thud, the master of the Texas oil empire knelt down before me, right there on stage. As the entire studio watched in shock, my mother tearfully opened her Louis Vuitton briefcase, while more than 10 bodyguards behind her simultaneously opened their briefcases as well. My parents knelt at my feet as countless $100 bills were displayed before me. "Hazel, please give us just one chance." I remained silent for a moment, then stepped forward and extended my hand. My parents were overjoyed and quickly reached out their hands as well, but I stepped past them and directly grabbed the briefcase from the ground. With a loud bang, I slammed the briefcase heavily onto the floor, and green banknotes instantly flew through the air as the entire audience scrambled to collect them. I smiled slightly. "I already told you, I am not your daughter." Everyone erupted into a massive frenzy, while only my parents sat stunned and collapsed on the ground. My goodness, this person has completely lost her mind. $100 million in cash thrown away just like that. Absolutely incredible. I truly cannot understand her. She refuses to acknowledge her family, so does she want to continue living as a street vagrant? The scene descended into complete chaos, and CBS brought in dozens of security guards to barely maintain order for the filming. The host steadied her microphone. What loving parents they truly are. "Miss Davis, what deep blood feud do you have with your biological parents? They even knelt before you, and still you refuse to acknowledge your family." I glanced at them indifferently. There is no feud, because I simply do not know them at all. I refuse to acknowledge this family purely because I do not believe in such miraculous good fortune falling from the sky. Upon hearing this, the host took a deep breath. "Our program's DNA testing is absolutely foolproof. This was conducted at Johns Hopkins Hospital. If you do not believe it, then let us conduct another paternity test right now. We guarantee that CBS will broadcast everything live." She looked at me with determined eyes, and I looked away. "No, thank you. I am very busy and have no time to waste with you people." As soon as I finished speaking, viewers watching the broadcast began laughing. What could she possibly be busy with? Busy going back to pick through garbage? Ha, she is definitely the oil tycoon's biological daughter. Look how guilty she appears. But why does she not want to acknowledge her family? If it were me, I would be running over there immediately. Even the host shook her head in frustration and helplessly watched me leave. Suddenly, my mother, who was kneeling on the ground, flashed with alertness. "Watch out!" I stopped in my tracks and looked up, hearing a steel beam from the ceiling crack and immediately come crashing down. "Ah!" I closed my eyes tightly, but I did not feel the expected pain on my body. What was happening? I slowly opened my eyes and saw my mother's face covered in blood. The massive steel beam was crushing her body while she had protected me underneath her, smiling as she spoke. "Hazel, are you hurt? Do not be afraid. Your mother is here. Your mother will protect you." I was speechless, my throat feeling completely blocked. "Vivian! Hazel!" My father immediately panicked and rushed over in one swift motion, using all his strength to lift the steel beam that was crushing Vivian. With a thunderous bang, the steel beam crashed to one side as my father's eyes filled with tears. "Quick, call 911. Vivian endured the pain and smiled. "Jonathan, I am fine." The sweat and blood on her face mixed together, making her complexion even paler, but she still had the strength to help me stand up. Vivian looked at me, and there was actually a hint of happiness in her eyes. As long as Hazel is unharmed, that is all that matters. I stood frozen for 3 seconds, then violently shook off her hand. "Whether I am hurt or not has nothing to do with you people." My mother's hand froze in midair. My father's expression changed as well. "Harper!" my brother shouted angrily. "Have you completely lost your mind? If Mom had not saved you, you would be dead right now." He was so angry that his shoulders shook violently. "You are absolutely disgusting!" My sister also burst into angry criticism. "I never imagined you could be so cold-hearted. Someone like you truly deserves to wander the streets homeless for the rest of your life. Even if I die, I will never acknowledge you as my sister." Upon hearing this, I shrugged and smiled. Perfect. That is exactly what I was hoping for. But Vivian acted as if she had not heard anything and angrily shouted at Penelope, "She is your biological sister." "How can you say such things?" Penelope bit her lip in grievance, but shouted out of control, "She is not! She is not! She is just a crazy tramp. She is not worthy of being my sister." Slap! Vivian's hand struck heavily across her face. Penelope stood stunned. Throughout her entire childhood, no matter what mistakes she made, her mother had never spoken a single harsh word to her. But today, she had struck her for Harper's sake. Vivian also looked stunned. "I am sorry." Penelope silently shed tears while my mother sighed. "I have failed both of you children, but I have failed Hazel even more. I just want her so desperately, because I do not have much time left." What? Both siblings looked shocked, and I raised my head to quietly observe her. Vivian smiled through her tears, but said nothing more. Jonathan spoke with red-rimmed eyes. "Your mother has late-stage pancreatic cancer and is scheduled for surgery tomorrow at MD Anderson Cancer Center. The surgery has only a 5% chance of success." The entire studio fell completely silent, and even my throat seemed to be constricted. She smiled softly. "Perhaps God is punishing me for being such an inadequate mother. Let us go. We should not continue to trouble Hazel anymore." Vivian looked at me one final time, her eyes glistening with tears, as if she were saying goodbye. I watched my parents supporting each other as they walked away, and I suddenly smiled. Facing the live broadcast cameras, I announced loudly, "Now, I am going to publicly reveal to all of America the reason I refuse to acknowledge this family and the greatest secret about these oil tycoon parents." My parents' backs stiffened as they slowly turned around. "What did you say?" I stared at them and spoke each word clearly. "What I want to reveal is your most unspeakable secret." Vivian stood frozen for 3 seconds, then smiled bitterly. What secrets could parents possibly have? Furthermore, I, Vivian Davis, have always conducted myself with complete integrity and absolutely have no unspeakable secrets. I quietly watched her without speaking. Jonathan also shook his head. "Hazel, do not listen to those rumors and slander on the internet. Your parents are absolutely honest and honorable people." I smiled slightly. "Is that so?" He looked stunned, but Sebastian spoke impatiently. "Harper, have you forgotten how well Mom and Dad treated you when you were little? Now you not only refuse to acknowledge your own family, but you want to join with outsiders to slander your own biological parents?" He struggled to control his emotions. "Mom is in this condition, and you still have the nerve to say such things." "No, I have not forgotten." I spoke calmly. "Yes, they never abused me. Moreover, from the moment I was born, I enjoyed abundant material conditions. Vivian Davis and Jonathan Davis never deprived me of anything." Sebastian looked puzzled. "Then why did you—" His expression changed. "Could it be that you really are blaming Mom for losing you back then?" "No." I spoke with firm conviction. "Back then, I deliberately made myself get lost on purpose." Upon hearing this, everyone frowned in confusion. "Harper, what do you mean by that?" Sebastian's face scrunched up in bewilderment, and my gaze moved past him to focus on my parents, who were staring at me in shock. I smiled slightly. "It was not that you lost me. Rather, I chose to escape from that home myself." I would rather choose to be a vagrant for 18 years than stay in that house any longer. Vivian's body trembled as she shouted frantically, "Why? What did your mother do wrong to make you hate us so much?" I quietly watched her lose control, rage, and wail while maintaining a completely expressionless face as I removed the pocket watch necklace from around my neck. Because of this. I turned my palm and the camera immediately captured a close-up shot. Inside the pocket watch, a yellowed old photograph appeared before the American viewing audience. Who is this little girl? She looks somewhat familiar, seems like... Wait, this is just a miniature version of Harper. My father, mother, brother, and sister all looked over. In the photograph was a little girl who looked exactly like me but smaller. She was wearing a pink doll dress and smiling brilliantly and sweetly. Jonathan blurted out, "This is you as a child, is it not?" Vivian squinted her red and swollen eyes and said hoarsely, "This photograph was taken by your mother when you were little, right?" She seemed to remember something and murmured to herself, "You were so clingy as a child, always demanding that Mommy hold you. Every time Mommy had to go out, you would grab onto my clothes with your tiny hands and act adorable." Vivian stared at the photograph in the pocket watch, smiling through her tears. How could I have forgotten? Your absolute favorite thing to wear was pink doll dresses. I smiled as well, and after a long pause, spoke softly. Mom, the one who loved pink dresses the most was not Hazel, but me. My name is Harper Davis. I have a twin sister named Hazel Davis. My sister and I were born on the same day, but because I was naturally domineering and competitive, always wanting to surpass others, so I stepped into this world 1 foot ahead of my sister, becoming the older twin. Mom said that since I was the big sister, I should be more considerate of my little sister. But I refused to do that. I wanted to do the opposite. When my sister had just learned to walk, I made her fetch diapers and prepare bottles for me. My sister was very obedient and did everything I asked. I was very pleased with myself, and when I bragged to Mom about it, she did not even glance at me. If you continue being so mischievous, I will not want you anymore. I was so frightened that I never dared to boss my sister around again, and I even often helped her change diapers and prepare bottles. When we got a bit older, I would pull my sister along to roll around in the red Texas soil, full of endless energy every day. But my sister seemed to prefer reading books, painting, and playing piano. Even the teacher Mom hired, who had graduated from Juilliard School, praised her endlessly. But for me, the teacher would only shake her head gently. Perhaps for this reason, every time Mom returned from work at the oil company, the first thing she would do was check my sister's homework, while I seemed to be forgotten. I became somewhat jealous of my sister. So before every piano lesson and painting lesson, I would ignore the nanny's advice and forcefully drag her to my secret base that I had secretly built at the Dallas suburban ranch. We would stay there for entire days. Even though Mom would fly into a rage every time, I was still happy, because this way I could spend more time with her. But by the 10th time I had dragged my sister to escape calligraphy class, Mom changed. She strictly ordered the nanny to confine me before my sister's classes, and furthermore, she never spoke to me again. Even on our birthday, she only prepared 1 cake and 1 gift. Hazel, sweetie, go change into the new dress Mommy bought for you. Later, we will go to Six Flags Over Texas with Daddy to have fun. She smiled as she rubbed my sister's head while I stood to one side in a daze, biting my lip hard to keep tears from falling. Mom glanced at me and was about to speak when a phone call came, and she was called away again for an emergency meeting at the oil company. I began crying loudly. My crying did not bring Mom back, but it did bring my sister to me. She handed me the new dress she had been holding. "Harper, here is the dress for you. Do not cry anymore." I stopped crying and looked at that pink doll dress and my sister's face that was identical to mine, and an idea formed in my heart. "Hazel, I am begging you, please let me wear the dress. I really love this dress so much. I also want to go to the amusement park with Mommy. You have gone so many times, but I have never been even once. I will pretend to be you, and you must not tell Mommy. Anyway, we are twins, so Mommy definitely will not be able to tell the difference." My voice grew softer and softer as I gradually lowered my head. This was my sister's birthday, too. How could I do such a thing? After hesitating for a long time, I scratched my head in frustration and was about to speak when my sister's sweet voice reached me. "Okay. As long as Harper is happy." I was thrilled beyond words and gave her a big hug. Then I put on the doll dress I had dreamed of wearing and went to 6 Flags that I had dreamed of visiting, spending an entire magical day beside Mom and Dad. When we returned to the Dallas mansion that evening, I eagerly opened my room door. "Hazel!" It was completely empty. I searched everywhere in the house but could not find any trace of my sister. I pretended to be my sister's obedient self and asked Mom, "Where did Harper go?" Mom's expression seemed somewhat off, but she only explained, "Your sister was not behaving, so I sent her to Grandma's house in Houston." My heart dropped with a thud. "I am sorry, Hazel. Please let me enjoy this kind of life just a little longer." So I pretended to be my sister, working hard to read books, paint, and play piano. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Mom had not discovered my deception, but I felt increasingly anxious. I could not bear it any longer, so I wrote a clumsy confession letter and secretly placed it in Mom's room. This was the first time I had ever entered Mom's master bedroom. As soon as I walked in, I saw a family portrait hanging beside a Texas oil painting. There was Dad, Mom, and Hazel. I was not in it. My heart ached, and I unconsciously placed my hand on Hazel's face, which looked exactly like mine, as I stood on my tiptoes. Suddenly, there was a clicking sound, and a Victorian-style floorboard in Mom's room slowly opened. My heart was shaken, and I swallowed hard as I walked down those dark basement stairs. I do not know how long those stairs were or how long I walked that day. I only remember that when I reached the bottom, I saw the nightmare that would haunt me for the next 18 years. In an enormous underground laboratory, countless children floated in formaldehyde, with countless thin tubes inserted into their heads and bodies. And in the glass container placed in the center, surrounded and pierced by tens of thousands of needle-like tubes in every inch of skin, was my 5-year-old twin sister, Hazel. The label on the glass container read, "Renal Golden Blood." That was the blood type of my mother, Vivian Davis, my sister Hazel, and myself. I explained to the camera, my heart completely calm and devoid of any emotion. The entire studio fell silent, and after a long time, only the host stammered, "Miss Davis, are you making up a story?" I smiled and asked in return, "Do you know how they became oil tycoons?" The host's pupils suddenly contracted, and I did not continue speaking. No. You are insane! Absolutely insane!" Everyone turned toward this sharp voice. Vivian no longer had the appearance of a pitiful mother suffering from a terminal illness, and Jonathan's face was as pale as a corpse. "What sister? What twins?" "You are my Hazel. I, Vivian Davis, have only one daughter, Hazel." She looked ferocious and shouted out of control. I curved my lips slightly. "Then what about my brother and sister?" Her face froze, and she immediately stopped speaking. "They are children you adopted from various places throughout Texas, right?" I looked toward a corner to one side, where Sebastian and Penelope, who had just been criticizing me, were now unusually silent. All to cover up the traces of my existence. You wanted Hazel as your child, and you wanted me, the inadequate older sister, as your experimental subject. But you never calculated that my sister and I had switched identities. I survived in her place, while she was... Shut up. Vivian completely lost control. Her voice became shrill. Impossible, absolutely impossible. How could I not recognize my own child? A hint of madness flashed in her tear-filled eyes. Hazel, you must be trying to get revenge on me for Harper's sake by deliberately saying these things, right? Jonathan, say something. At this point, Jonathan was leaning against the wall, muttering, It is all over. Everything is finished. I smiled coldly. I already told you from the beginning that I am not Hazel at all. But Vivian still refused to accept reality. You are lying. Hazel was clearly suffering from amnesia, right? She suddenly looked at me sharply, and I spoke slowly. The person who had amnesia at that time was also me. The first thing I did after coming out of the underground laboratory was to tear up that confession letter. During the following 3 days and nights, I had a fever of 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and it burned away all of my memories from before age 5, completely clean. I almost truly became Hazel. Vivian shook her head blankly, unable to say a single word. When the host saw this situation, she quickly grabbed her microphone. Then how do you know now? I smiled faintly. I told you, I was born with a restless nature. Even after losing my memory, I could never become that Hazel who loved reading, painting, and playing piano. So 5 years later, I was mysteriously drawn to that Dallas suburban ranch where I used to go most often, and in a patch of red soil, I discovered the secret base that my sister and I had shared. Only there remained traces of her existence. Vivian completely collapsed to the ground. This is not true. It is not true. I ignored her and spoke softly. That is when I recovered my memory. I was afraid Vivian would discover I was not Hazel, and even more afraid she would capture me to use as an experimental subject, so I deliberately planned to get separated from her at North Park Center. From then on, every day I survived by searching through dumpster scraps and leftovers, and I have lived this way until now. After I finished speaking, the only sounds in the entire studio were the machines running backstage and some audience members quietly sobbing. Vivian stumbled toward me, but the host quickly intervened and stopped her. Evidence! Where is the evidence? She showed a hint of crazed laughter. Everything you have said has absolutely no evidence. I'm going to sue you right now for... I sighed deeply. The evidence has been in your hands from the very beginning. She looked stunned. What? I slowly walked over, crouched down, and picked up the DNA test report that had been torn in half on the ground. The sample sent for genetic testing was what I found in the secret base. Hazel's hair. You are lying to me. I do not believe it. I do not believe it. I smiled coldly and pulled out a metal box from my pocket, throwing it down with a clang. The hair strands inside scattered across the floor. If you do not believe it, then go do a DNA comparison right now. Tens of millions of eyes across America are watching us. No one can play any tricks. Vivian looked up at the audience, where hundreds of eyes were staring at her. She was completely speechless. Meanwhile, the CBS online viewership had reached 50 million, with countless comments flooding social media. My goodness. Parents who send their daughter to be an experimental subject, are they even human? This has to be a script, right? Those saying it is a script, this is an oil tycoon on the Forbes list, CBS's official family reunion program. How could it possibly be scripted? If what she is saying is true, then this is absolutely terrifying when you think about it. I quietly watched her, and Vivian suddenly laughed. She stood up calmly, dusted off her clothes, as if her previous loss of control had never happened. Fine then, let us go. Not only was I stunned, but internet users were also shocked. Huh? How dare she? Once they do the DNA test, the truth will be completely revealed, right? The internet user who had just typed this line suddenly paused. The live broadcast suddenly ended. He quickly opened news apps, waiting for this explosive headline. But after refreshing for a long time, the headlines were all things like Moo Moo celebrity posts Instagram selfie and Moo Moo actor suspected of having new romance. All major platforms were completely calm, without even the slightest ripple. A chill ran up from his feet. Could it be that the truth of the matter had taken another turn? Or could those oil tycoon parents really cover the sky with their hands, deceiving 50 million pairs of eyes? He swallowed hard and searched across various platforms, finally finding an obscure Reddit post hours later. After she finished speaking, even the FBI was mobilized. This comment mentioned no names, but everyone seemed to understand implicitly. An internet user carefully typed, "What happened next?" How did it turn out? After a while, there was a reply. Not clear. I just heard that there were several hundred people at the scene, and each person received several $1 million in hush money. This matter involves too many things. I think we may never get to see the truth. The internet user was stunned, and 3 seconds later, the post disappeared. He stared blankly as he put down his phone, walked to a wall full of journalism books and materials, and pulled out a yellowed photo album. It was not until several days later, in the early morning, that a news story appeared out of nowhere. Breaking news. Oil tycoon couple both imprisoned. Federal court sentences them to death. FBI dismantles large-scale human experimentation facility involving hundreds of child victims. Davis oil empire completely collapses, assets seized by federal government. Several weeks later, I was sorting through garbage at a Dallas trailer park when an unexpected visitor found me. Without looking up, I continued picking through leftovers I had scavenged from McDonald's dumpster. "I do not accept interviews. Please leave." The man hung his Canon camera around his neck and quickly pulled something out of his bag. "Wait, I have something very important to give you." I paused and invited him into my crude shelter built from discarded materials. "Please sit." He sat on a chair I had made from cardboard boxes and handed me a photo album. "Open it and take a look." I frowned and opened it, and my heart suddenly lurched. These were photographs of her. I looked at the album full of faces identical to mine, but smiling brilliantly, and emotions I had not felt for more than 10 years surged through my heart. "How do you have these?" My voice caught. The man smiled bitterly. "These are photography practice shots I took more than 10 years ago at that Dallas suburban ranch. I never expected I would capture your sister by chance. And I also watched that live broadcast." After much hesitation, he put his camera back and took out a pen and notebook, asking tentatively, "Miss Davis, may I ask you a few questions?" I nodded. "Take out the camera." "I am willing to do an interview." His face lit up with joy, and after nervously adjusting his video camera with shaking hands, he opened his notebook and read, "Miss Harper, please tell us, what exactly happened after the live broadcast ended that day? Did Vivian really go with you to verify the DNA? What were the DNA verification results? I picked up a worn cup, took a sip, and spoke slowly. At that time, we did indeed go to verify the DNA. The result was that the DNA from Hazel's hair was completely unrelated to Vivian Davis. The reporter's pupils suddenly contracted. How could that be? The reason was that she had tampered with the results. After Vivian received that incorrect DNA test report, she looked at me with complete confidence. Tell me, who will the public believe? Me, an oil tycoon mother who has been desperately searching for her child for more than 10 years? Or you, a mentally unstable homeless girl? Outside the testing room door, there were only the two of us. She picked up her iPhone and put on a mask-like smile. Even if you two did switch identities, so what? You were both nothing more than tools for my success. Her smile seemed to crack slightly. Hazel was simply the winner I selected from between you two. I had no feelings for her whatsoever. My only child is my oil empire. She practically shouted as she finished. After a moment, she regained her composure. In this world, only power and influence are real. Right now, I can immediately have you sent to a psychiatric hospital. She picked up her phone, and just as the call was about to connect, a group of FBI agents burst through the door. FBI, do not move. Suspect Vivian Davis is involved in major federal crimes. You are under arrest. Vivian was startled, then calmly said, You must be working for Senator Johnson. Have you not received notice yet? I already spoke with him. The lead agent sternly rebuked, We serve only the law and justice, and we absolutely do not engage in favoritism. You have committed crimes with solid evidence. It does not matter who you spoke with. Take her away. The moment handcuffs were placed on Vivian's wrists, she completely panicked. No, I did not. You cannot do this. I want to see my lawyer. She struggled desperately, as if she had been sentenced to death, screaming unwillingly, her voice echoing throughout the entire hallway. I put down my cup and looked calmly at the reporter. That is the truth of what happened. The reporter put down his pen, closed his notebook, and let out a deep, troubled breath. Those FBI agents were truly good people. I smiled slightly and said nothing. Actually, how would an ordinary senator dare to oppose the power of oil tycoons? The real chip that allowed me to win this gamble was the priceless treasure flowing through my veins. Before appearing on the show, I had already contacted energy conglomerates that competed with Davis Oil Industries. I gave them exclusive rights to use Rinal Golden Blood, and they eliminated the obstacles for me. It was all just an exchange of interests. I smiled faintly and was about to close the door to see the guest out when the reporter paused. Miss Davis, now that you have exposed the true face of the oil tycoons and no longer need to hide your identity, why do you still choose to live here? He politely restrained himself from covering his nose, but was still clearly bothered by the stench of the surrounding garbage. I shook my head gently and smiled. Since I stole my sister's life, how could I deserve to live well? The reporter fell silent, then spoke sadly. Miss Davis, do you know what your sister said to me when I was photographing her? I looked up and stared at him intently. She proudly told me, I have a sister who looks exactly like me. She treats me so well and often takes me out to play. She loves wearing pink doll dresses, and when I grow up, I definitely want to buy her lots and lots of dresses. My biggest wish is to go to many, many places together with her. I do not know how much time passed, but the Texas sun was already high at noon. I shouldered my worn backpack, looked up at the blue sky, and seemed to hear Hazel's fulfilled laughter echoing in the clouds above. This time, I wanted to fulfill her unfinished dreams and visit all those places she had wanted to see, but never could. Even if it was in this way, even if it was driven by guilt, I wanted to make her wishes come true, because whether I was Harper or Hazel, I always remembered what that innocent little girl had once said to me. Harper, we will always be together. Now I could finally keep that promise.